Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we go back to our favorite distillery in Campbelltown. Not that there's many. Springbank. I think they own pretty much all of them. The 18, which is a whiskey we do all the time. This is the 2014 release, Dustin. 46% like always.
Yeah.
And we have a lot, that has a lot of these old Springbanks, and since they are slightly different every year, we like to bring them to you.
Yeah.
This 2014 is a little bit different than the current 18 years old we have now, so we want to tell you a little bit about why they're different, and talk more about this 2014 release. Dustin, you've had this bottle for quite some time.
Yes, and I have it back. No shocker, right?
Never.
Back when they were more affordable. This, just for anybody at home looking, is the 14/301, because back in these days they didn't do the dates.
Oh, did they?
No. So that's I believe, from what I remember, that's the 301st day of the year, meaning this was November-ish, maybe?
October, November.
Yeah.
October.
And oddly enough, it's on the front, not the back.
Huh, it is new.
Yeah. So.
Same purple.
Yeah, so I guess, you're right. It's probably end of October. However, I will say that I think Whiskey Base said it was December. I'm confused. I've never been able to fully understand the bottle coding there, but it says 14, so I know it's 2014.
Let's get into it, Dustin.
You have made the reference to bubblegum a few times tonight, Mike, but this is the most bubblegum whiskey we've nosed all night. This is bubblegum sherry.
Bubblegum sherry, but still, our buddy Keith always called the 18 vinegar chips. There is as much vinegar in this as I've ever had in an 18.
I could see that.
It's vinegar and bubblegum sherry, which are two notes that are kind of contrasting, but they still play all right together.
There's a sourness here for sure.
Yep, sourness.
When I first got this one, I was not super impressed, and I wasn't, in my head, I didn't differentiate it that much from the 10. As it has opened up and gotten down here now, getting ready for bottle kill time, it's getting really nice.
Still funky. It's a little funkier than they are now.
Yeah.
A little funkier, a little dirtier.
It's less oaky, too, than some of the sherry casks we get today. This one seems to have imparted less oak. There's oak here, but it's less.
I agree, but the sherry note with the bubblegum note gave it a better one.
I like what they're doing here, and it definitely reminds me very much of like this era. Springbank was more refill sherry. I think they're using a little bit more first fill in these casks today. This is very refill.
Yeah, that's probably absolutely difference. When I get the bubblegum note, like in some of the Lagavulins, they're refilled sherry.
Yeah, and so there could be bourbon in here. I don't know, but to me, this is predominantly refilled sherry that's really dominating this nose.
This has an excellent nose.
It really does,
even compared to other 18s.
I will say the peat notes here are pretty minimal.
Agreed. Are you getting any sugar cookies?
No. In fact, it's a little spicy, almost like a ginger snap if you were going to try to pick a cookie out of here.
The vinegar note is turned up in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, compared to 18s.
Again, I don't think of the vinegar note too often. It's just like not a note I think of, but you're dead on. It's absolutely what it is.
Well, Keith always brings it up. Every time we have spring, he always says vinegar chips. I don't know about the chip part, but I have never got more vinegar in one of these.
It's definitely not the salty part of the salt and vinegar chip. It's the vinegar. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not super maritime either here, but just really nice.
But it is funky.
Yeah.
It is Springbank funky.
Well, I think that those refilled casks from this era, again, were drivers of the funk. I feel like Springbank is a cleaner malt than people who got into Springbank in that 2010 to 2017 era realized, because they used some really funky sherry casks.
It definitely has less funk in the current bottles. We've done a bunch of older bottlings, and it's always more funky.
Yeah, they had an era there of just these really funky refill, and this is a showcase for that.
Yeah, I would say I totally agree with you. I think currently now they absolutely use more first fill or more active casks. Mm-hmm. Where they just weren't afraid to be who they were.
And again, I still would say this is an active refill cask. It's not lacking. It's just it's
not an overcoat.
No, but again, I think it's just whatever these sherry casks they bought back in these days just had a more vinegar note to them. They had a more funkiness to them.
I think they were imparted lighter flavors. So that's why it's funkier. The vinegar note has to come from something else, right?
But we've had straight up bourbon cask. That's not coming from the malt.
You're right. You're probably right.
And so we've had those, and they've been pretty clean, good, more peaty and maritime. And then
getting no peanut.
And then think about we had the 2009 Springbank 18. That was similar vein to this, and we had an old bottle style Longrow 18, super vinegar.
Yeah, you're right. This is a little bit higher than the vinegar from that 2019, in my opinion.
I think the Longrow was higher, but
the Longrow may have been higher. That was
yeah. This is more than the 09, but yes, the Longrow I thought was very vinegar.
Yeah, you can see the evolution of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh man, this is
it's really good, isn't it?
I mean, for a whiskey that we all three, I include Keith in this, we all know this whiskey well. We all like this whiskey, and we've had a bunch of them. It's a pretty fun one.
Yeah, I got lucky. Actually, ended up with a couple of these thanks to a couple of them just showed up like 3 years after they released at just one of my stores, and I was like, and for the price of 3 years old, I was like, yeah, I'll take those. Thank you.
Yep. They're a mess to find now.
Oh, God, they're 300 plus. It's crazy.
See, I like Springbank a little funkier like this. Turn down the cask maturation just slightly, get a little more funky. That's.
All right. So on the palate, Mike, it's this weird juxtaposition of maybe the sweetest Springbank 18 I've ever had and the funkiest. That vinegar note's there, but up front, man, it is so much fruitiness and bubble gum, and it's so delightful and just inviting. But then on the finish, in comes the peat, and you get a nice smoky peatiness that is with nice oak. It's an incredible experience. You know, you might complain it's not, wish it was cast strength, blah, 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 but beyond that, man, this is just a flavor punch. It's just a freaking cacophony of flavors fighting with each other, and yet they all work together.
Well, they all get in line.
Yeah.
You're right. At first, it is sweet. And a little bit of fruits, and then right when you swallow, vinegar, and then instantly goes in this dirty funk and cask and oak. I mean...
And peat.
Yeah, peat.
Super peaty on the finish, man.
Yeah, I mean, the finish is a completely different animal than what it was initially. Like, it was all sweet and just great texture, but it was silky smooth, and then it just got real dirty. And that's with whiskey. It just got dirty at the end. I love the transitions. I'm sorry. Did I put one of mine?
No.
The transitions are clear cut. I love how they stacked them. Sweet. It almost came off alcohol, zero alcohol when you first put it in.
Yeah.
It was just sweet and fruits, and then the vinegar hit, and then it, like I said, it just got dirty, and you're right, it got smoky. I love that progression.
And the alcohol,
I can appreciate all
the alcohol lingered on the finish, but it didn't. Yeah, you're right. The arrival was pretty clean.
The arrival, it was sweet, no ABV, fruity. And then it got vinegar. I really can't tell the ABV. It was mid-palate. And then it's got dirty, high ABV, smoky. The type of finish you want with a peated whiskey.
Yeah.
I was getting no peat on the nose.
No. And I was, when the finish hits, I'm like, oh, that's right. And I had this a couple nights ago, and it's like, oh, yeah. And when I finally saw where it was at, I was like, all right, perfect. It's time to do a little bottle kill night. You know, we try to rush out and get these things to you guys early when they're still on shelves, but this one, long gone.
Yeah, we got a bunch of old bottles that we just trickle in here and there.
Yeah.
They're fun, though. And I do like going back to old bottlings at our favorite distilleries to kind of get that feel of how they change. It helps you recalibrate where you're at.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times people talk about stuff and it's like, yeah, it was different back then. People are like, was it really, or are you just different now?
Correct. Or you're not remembering.
Yeah.
Very easy to do.
11 years old. Or going on 11 years old.
This is a really well-constructed whiskey. The sherry note is almost perfect.
They beautifully did this. And I tell you what, the sherry note is even more perfect here now they've added water.
I've never had this pungent of a vinegar note, though. I know we're saying so many things.
Yeah.
But even though all of these things are coexisting at the same time and it doesn't sound like they would, they do.
Now I'm getting kind of like, that grapefruit or like a pineapple, like acidity at the end. I'm not saying it's those fruits per se, but the acidity note's kind of coming through again. Similar-esque to like a Hazelburn 10 on the finish.
Water did open that up just a tad. But it almost made it more sweet, too.
Yeah, no, they actually cleaned up the sherry a bit. It's actually a little cleaner now. A little more, I mean, the sweetness just dominates. The vinegar's still there. It's just a little bit more in the background.
If you know Springbank 18 and you like Springbank 18, Ever since I tried this whiskey, I liked it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I bought this in the 16 local bar at the same time, and I preferred this initially. Like when I had the two.
I could see it. Yeah.
I didn't have a review. I didn't have anyone bounce ideas off of, but just my flavor profile. I was like,
you like the age notes, and this has got. It's not quite to where you're getting old whiskey notes, but it's got some. It's starting to get there. It's giving you hints.
Mm-hmm. Dustin, Springbank 10 was my first Springbank. He said it was a terrible way to start. This is my second Springbank.
It's a good way to go.
Third one was local barley 16. It went up significantly after that 10.
Yeah, my first was a 12-year cast strength.
It took me a while to get that 12-year cast strengths. You were big on them. That was another thing that you just kept bringing them. So I was like, you know what? I wasn't as impressed with this one initially, but I have come to appreciate it in a big way. Now I think I tell people now, it's the safest bet in whiskey. The 12-year-old cast strength.
I've told you this.
I've come so far on that whiskey.
The first time I bought a Springbank 12 cast strength, I made the comment in Rob Whiskey in the 6th video, and I was like, I got one of these. I don't know if this is the best or worst whiskey I've ever had. I'm so confused. Like, it took me a while to figure it out. I mean, I wasn't new to whiskey, but I was new to Springbank, and I was like, what the heck is this? This is not the whiskey I'm used to.
I know exactly what you mean.
Because, I was still used to, again, the Balvenies. I'd gotten into a little bit of the Compass Box.
I
was a big Buffalo Trace bourbon guy. I had all the Pappy, Van Winkle.
How many times when you were confused like that it ended up being just a quality item?
Usually you end up liking it, yeah.
Just you were recognizing again. We were talking earlier in the Cavline Bourbon video how the whiskey world 10-year-old. I was like, are we idiots, or is this just, or does no one else see this? It took a second. Whenever you see something at some point that you love, and you think like, why isn't everyone jumping on this? You second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to shut up and believe in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, these things used to just sit on shelves all over the U.S. I mean, it's gotten now where we can generally get a hold of Springbank when they don't freaking have shipwrecks and lose half the bottles. But
yeah, when the shipping yard doesn't mess it up. But again, going back to it, man, I've always loved this 18. I loved it since the first time I had it. It's such a good spot for this distillery. Mm-hmm. I used to say I preferred Springbank with age before I really fell in love with the 12 as I have now. But I always think age made a lot of difference with this distillery in particular. And I was backed up by my first love was, I liked this with you. My first love was really the 25. I had to work my way backwards. But this is a good medium ground for this distillery. This is pretty old whiskey in general. But for Springbank, this has always been a great whiskey. Mm-hmm. Man, I appreciate this whiskey. All right. Whiskey score time, Dustin. I'm going to go first. You write it down.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just going to start just talking a little bit about my thoughts. I don't know if this is my favorite Springbank 18, and it may be my favorite Springbank 18. It is definitely the most interesting. Mm-hmm. And this is really what Springbank 18 is. Vinegar chips, sherry sweetness, and dirty funk. The modern bottles aren't as funky and aren't as vinegar forward. And they're more sherry overcoat. So what I, in this moment, believe is my favorite Springbank 18? I'm going to say it's a 90. It handled whiskey well. That's a big score to give a 48% whiskey. I was at an 89, maybe 88 initially, until I had the sip, until I put some water in it. I'm at a 90. I'm probably over a point. What do you got?
90. I went right back to, I think I gave a 90 to the 2018 21-year-old. This is better. And I think I gave a 90 to whichever was that heavy sherry one we had, maybe 22.
Boy, that sounds right.
Yeah. It's the one you picked up over there.
How about two? I got that one. I got no one in there. You're right.
Yeah. So
I like this profile better.
This is classic Springbank. It brings me back to all of the stuff that got me into Springbank originally. This is excellent. I'm super glad that I have another bottle of this. Unfortunately, I don't think I have any other teen bottles to bring us of the 18s because those all got crushed.
I know
before I was reviewing with you, Mike.
I know you've been hiding this from me, Dustin, because you had another bottle. Oh, this is a good one.
That's right. This one, well, it's like one of those. I didn't want to bring it because people are just like, well, I can't get it. And I'm like, well, a lot of stuff's starting to show up at auctions again, so it's time to talk about the old stuff because it's becoming more available. True.
And if we have a whiskey that we really like, we want to talk about it.
Yeah. This is an excellent one. I know a couple guys on the Discord somehow also, like years later, got these bottles. So whatever, we must have gotten a large allocation of this particular release here in the States. So a lot of people here in the States got a hold of these. So
Dustin, if only one We did that, the Cavaline Brew on the sherry one that I had. Some guy, I think it was from New York, posted, I can't believe it. You had this I had this exact bottle. You know, there's only 124 bottles or something like that.
And we're like, well, we found ours on an island in the middle of the Pacific, and you found yours.
Was it New York?
In New York.
Yeah, that's where it was. Like, wow.
I remember thinking to myself, like, what a distribution on that single cask. It made it multiple places on the
all around the world. But again, someone will have this bottle.
Yes.
And we know Springbank 18. This is impressive as Springbank 18 gets. Not that much more, but enough more.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it came in at cask strength and it was like, they actually were putting in 40-year-old Springbank into this one. I'm sure they weren't, but it's just a great 18-year-old. A great 18.
If this was Lagavulin 12, it'd be this 2017.
Absolutely.
Those are our thoughts on this particular whiskey. If you guys had a chance to try this 2014 release of Springbank 18, we'd love to know what you guys think. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy drinking.
See you next time.